With your breeder or a finch keeper, at some point you'll probably find that you'll end up losing birds through illnesses or disease or some other natural causes, etc. You'll be quite surprised how many birds actually die around the globe on a daily basis in the hands of breeders and keepers. And what actually shocks me more than anything is the amount of birds that die and they are disposed of by the keeper, and they don't know why the bird died. They just move on. They just think the bird's died. Don't know why it died. We'll put it in the bin or bury it or whatever they do to dispose of it. If you've got more than one bird, you know, you have to be worried, because especially if he's in a cage with another bird or other birds, or even if he's in a room with many other birds, if that bird dies, you really need to find out why he's died, because if it's contagious, the chances are your other birds may already be suffering from it, and if they don't already suffer from it, they may do in the near future. It's obviously contagious diseases, they do spread, and they don't always appear, you know, straight away. The problems don't rear their ugly heads until sometime later. It may take months, even maybe weeks, months, years, who knows. Depends what type of illness it is. It is best to find out why that bird died, so that you can protect the other birds. What I did want to mention through this video is about toxins. A lot of birds die through toxic poisoning, such as metal poisoning, lead poisoning, what other bits of metals that they're exposed to. I mean, you may have in your cage exposed bits of metal, screws, rust, even rust poisoning. Definitely rust is a bad thing for the birds. If you've got any rust in the cage, get rid of it. You know, rub it down if you have to, then paint over it, or get it chromed. Any kind of exposed metal that you've got in your cage, apart from obviously the cage metal itself, like screws, etc., or swings, just make sure that the metal is coated with something. Just paint over it, or something rubber over it so they can't get to it. You'd be surprised how many birds actually die from metal poisoning, and so, like I said, especially lead. Lead is probably the most common form of deaths with birds. Rust. If you have got a cage that's rusty, like I have seen many people post pictures online, and they're fantastic looking birds, but the cages that they put them in sometimes are pretty horrific, and it's no wonder that they lose birds. And I'm thinking, well, look at the state of that cage, it's really filthy, and the rust on there is unbelievable. If that's the case, if you can't afford another cage, just release the bird into a safe environment, let it fly around the room while you attend to the cage. Rub it down, get some wet and dry or something, clean the cage up, and if you can, get it chromed or get it powder coated, paint it with some, you know, non-toxic paint for the birds, so that when you put the birds back in, the cage is easier to clean and they don't get poisoned from the rust. So that's just one thing I wanted to mention. Another thing as well was certain woods, like cedar wood. Some woods that are burnt can release toxic gases and stuff like that, which can be very deadly to the bird actually. And it can be usually irreversible. Once they've been infected with the gas, there's no turning back. There's also other things like foliage. If you've got house plants which are near to the cage that the birds can reach, be careful, just move the plants away so they can't get to it. If you have birds that fly around the room, make sure that you put all your house plants away, because not all house plants are actually healthy for the birds. Some are not, like orchids. Orchids are fine. The only trouble is they'll eat all your flowers, but they're harmless to the bird, no problem at all. But there are lots of other. In fact, there's probably more poisonous plants in your house than non-poison, so it's probably best to remove all your plants. There is an online, or you can go to a library. There is a safe list for things which you can put inside your cage, or things that your birds can come in contact with, and things that they can't. So if you're not sure about something, I would check up first. There's too many to put on this video. It would take probably many DVDs to list everything that which is good for a bird and which is bad. But there are lists online that you can get a general idea. If you're not sure about something, if it's on that, you can check, and if it's on that list, if it's on the safe list, then you can use it. If it's on the danger list, definitely don't use it, obviously. There is a thing with foliage as well. Some people are on about what foliage can I put inside my cage or my aviary. The thing is with foliage, you don't really have to have real foliage in your aviary or your cage. You could just use plastic, artificial. Some of the cheap stuff, real cheap nasty stuff, like stuff you get from China, I'd be careful, because they use, not always, but sometimes you can get the real cheap quality stuff which has got funny paints on it, and the paint's actually toxic but not the plastic, and they nibble on the leaves and stuff and they end up digesting the plastic, the paints, so be careful with that as well. Air fresheners. Air fresheners, if you use it in your home, I would avoid using any type of incense, like air fresheners, hairsprays, those plug-in smelly things that you get. Burning certain candles, not all candles, but some candles are poisonous because they have like a fragrance to them, or they have some candles use different materials for the wick, and depending on what material they've used, I mean, just be careful of that as well. If you're not sure about something, don't use it. That's my prerogative, really. If I think myself, well, if I'm not sure about something, rather than take the chance, just don't use it. I wanted to mention as well about Teflon, because Teflon is some people don't find out about it until it's too late. I know a good friend of mine lost quite a lot of birds through Teflon. He was in the kitchen and he was cooking some pancakes. The birds were in a different room. The doors were shut, but however the window was closed, so that when he cooked, when you cook in pancakes, they have to get quite hot. And the pan that he was using, when he phoned me up afterwards and explained that the birds had died, and I did say to him, I did point out it was Teflon poisoning. And he said, well, no, it's a good quality pan. I said, well, no, the cheaper pans are actually the better ones, really, because they only have 1 or 2 coats of Teflon, and the newer good quality ones have like many coats. They want it to last longer, so they put more coats on it. And of course, because you need more coats, you need to get that pan hotter. And of course, getting the pan hotter, it warms, it heats up. In fact, I would say overheats the Teflon. The Teflon, when it gets hot, the non-stick, it releases a PTOE and a PTFA gas. Sorry, a PTOA and a PTFE gas. And those gases, once breathed by the birds, there's nothing you can do. All you can do is just sit back, pull up a chair and just watch your birds die, because not even a vet can reverse that. Once they breathe that fumes in, it's no good. Me, I use stainless steel for cooking everything. Everything's stainless steel. I used to have non-stick, but when I found out about that, I threw it all out, and I don't have nothing in the house which is non-stick. I did write a short list down of things, because there was just a couple of things which are important I wanted to go over, most of which I've covered. Tobacco. If you're a smoker, try and avoid smoking around the birds, because tobacco can be very deadly, and it doesn't take effect on them straight away. It's usually over a period of time. Same with humans. We smoke it, and it's a progressive illness, so your birds will probably end up getting something like cancers or tumours, and again, there's pretty much nothing you can do once they get to that stage. And don't let them eat tobacco either. It doesn't matter if it's rolling tobacco, pipe tobacco, chewing tobacco, none of it. Get rid of all of it. Don't want it in your house. Just get it outside, just smoke it away from them. Again, like I said, branches. There are branches that you can use. I find conifers, most conifer plants, or trees, sorry, evergreens. I find most evergreens seem to be quite fine for the birds. I've had no problems with evergreens. Bamboo. Bamboo's perfect, but the only problem is with bamboo, if you're using as perches, is that the texture is very smooth, so it's not very good on their feet, and also that the diameter across the actual thing is, across the bamboo is normally the same. So if you've got like the same width, the same diameter bamboo all the way through your cage, those birds they're going to end up eventually having arthritis later on in life. And so you want different types. If you can, get different types of branches with different textures. and fruit trees are normally quite good as well. So that's what I tend to go for. Any plastic things like that, and plastic perches or plastic perches, I just throw them away. I know they're easy to clean and they look pretty, but to be honest, it really doesn't do the bird any good. And you can buy dowels as well, which is like just same thickness all the way through, and they're alright, but to be honest, you're better off taking loads of chunks out of them, so they've got different witnesses, different textures across their feet, and different diameters all the way across. Paints, certain paints you can use and certain ones you can't. People say to me, would you paint the inside of your cage with for your birds? And I said, well, I use a water-based eggshell paint, because the one that I use is harmless for the birds. I've had no problems with it whatsoever. I wash it out, no problem. It's waterproof. At the end of the year, I will clean it all out and I'll just give it another paint. It's not really that expensive, depending on how many cages you've got. Another thing is incense sticks. Now, incense sticks might look innocent, and you think, oh, I'll light one of those up and burn it, you know, make the room smell nice. But those incense sticks, be careful with some of them. Some of them, obviously, when they make them, they're actually they use wood, which is a stick, obviously, and I don't know. They use different materials on the outside for the stuff that burns, and the stick they use can be sometimes cedar wood, rosewood, and other poisonous woods. So be careful. I just wouldn't use them. I had thousands of them of all different types, which I've been saving for years, and every now and then I'd burn a few, but I had to throw them all away. They're no good. I can't use them, and I wouldn't risk my birds' lives just to have a little smell. It's not worth it. It's just, the birds are just too important. Also, open fires. If you've got an open fire indoors, whether you're burning logs, coal, charcoal, coal can let off some very poisonous gases as well. I'm not sure if it's carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide. I'm not sure which one it is. I always get those two mixed up. But when the birds breathe that in, wave goodbye to your birds. There's no good for them at all. They'll be gone. I think I've covered pretty much most of the important things, really. Yeah. But if your bird does die, or your bird is very, very ill, I've always found with lead poisoning, the poop, the feces, they turn black, and that's, for me, it raises alarm bell straight away, and I'm thinking, hello, you know, there must be some kind of poison in there going on. Then I'll look inside the cage, make sure there's no little bits of metal in there, because if you're buying certain beddings like wood chips, etc., sometimes you get little bits of metal, plastic, and etc., or bits of wood that's been painted, and you might just get little weird stuff in there. And just go through, just make sure there's nothing in there that shouldn't be. But if your bird does die, or you have a bird that's ill, find out. Make sure you find out. Take that bird away. Get it out of that room. Get it away from the other birds, because you need to protect whatever that bird has got. You need to protect those other birds, so that bird it's okay sort of to lose one, but you don't want to lose all of them just for the sake of ignorance. Even if you're in a small place and you've only got one room, get that bird in another little cage and move it right on the other side of the room, out of the way from the other birds, and get to find out what it is. If you have to take it to a vet, take it to a vet. But if you don't know and you can't afford to get to a vet, you're going to need to probably look at some of the other videos that I will be doing. Maybe some of the ones I've done, and try and find out what's wrong. And again, you can go online as well, look up, the first thing I would do is look up poopology, poo-poology I think they call it. It doesn't really matter, it's just all the same to me. And like I always say, get yourself a microscope, because you probably find a lot in there as well. So, and I think most metal poisoning, depending on the stage, or some poisonings, not just metal, but some poisonings are reversible. If the bird is almost near dead, you can reverse it sometimes, if you catch it in time usually. And you need to find out what it is first and give them the right treatment. And again, as I always said again in the other videos, make sure if you do find a bird that's ill, give it heat first. First thing is heat. But while you pick the bird up, before you put it in there, always check, make sure it's not losing weight. That's the first thing I do. I pick the bird. If I find a bird that's ill, I'll pick it up. First thing I do before I even look at the bird is I feel down the kill bone, make sure it's got plenty of meat on both sides. If it hasn't, then that that will narrow down to a lot, quite a lot of things what it could be. And then you put it into the hospital cage, and then you can work from there, get it some warmth from that, and then when it's warmed up a little bit, then you can start checking other things. But we'll cover all that later anyway. But this video is basically just to highlight toxins, really, just general hazards around the house, poisons, sprays, air sprays, air fresheners, those stupid little plug-in things, and anything that's releases gases or anything that burns, really. That's what you've got to think about. So anyway, this has been a short video, and I hope this makes some sense to you, and I hope it comes in some use as well. So I'll see you in the next video.